throw me down a flight of stairs, and destroy my relationship. Well, I hope you didn't like your life, as you knew it. So a little bit about me before I go into this. And before you ask about it, I am going to be incredibly vague about a lot of specifics. If you've ever worked in cybersecurity or for the government, you'd understand why I'm cagey. I graduated from high school in the late 2000s. I tried college, it didn't work for me, so I enlisted like I had already planned to after I got an associate's. I got into the Navy, passed quals for the Special Warfare training block while in basic, and after completion went and started training to become a SEAL, which I did not complete because that stuff is no joke. But it's cool because I went SWCC instead and became a dirty boat guy. SWCC are the guys you see in movies arriving just in time with fast boats blasting lots of firepower at the bad guys so they can pull our boys out of hell. Sometimes they work with helo crews or man the helos themselves. Most often they just patrol riverways in Iraq begging for someone to shoot at them to break the monotony. That sounds way cooler than it really was. Aside from becoming an expert in all things small watercraft and doing a good amount of diving and aircrew stuff as well, I didn't get to do the cool SEAL stuff. There's things I did do while strapped to a SEAL team, but I don't think I can talk about that. No door kicking, no breaching, no team stuff. Only on a handful of occasions did I even get into a firefight. Side note, most YouTube Special Forces operators are former team or group guys who are full of nonsense and their colleagues did most of the heavy lifting. They just tell the stories from their perspective, so somebody gets to tell it without divulging identities, etc. Anyway, I got out of boat stuff 8 years in after being injured and did my last 4 years of my 12-year career doing other stuff in special warfare, more cyber-oriented. I retired, collected my VA card, and went to school for a couple semesters to bone up on stuff I needed for some cybersecurity certifications. And I've been working private sector since early 2019, got my own LLC and everything. So this story actually starts in early 2016. I had been back in my hometown for a while, which was near a major naval base. I had changed career tracks and was on med leave for a bit after my injury, so I had been able to take some time to reconnect with an old high school sweetheart of mine, and we had been dating for several months. She was my best friend growing up, and I absolutely blew it when I had the opportunity to take her to junior prom, and we didn't see much of each other after we graduated, and I enlisted, so we'd grown apart, and in the several years it'd been since we'd parted ways and reconnected, she had had a kid of her own, an adorable little 3-year-old girl, and Daddy wasn't in the picture, which was absolutely his loss because she was a gem of a child. We grew close quickly, and after a couple months, she'd occasionally call me Daddy, which made my heart soar. And as for her mother, I was head over heels for her years ago, and reconnecting with her only reinforced those old feelings because it took off like a rocket. We were inseparable for the first couple of months, and when we weren't going on fun play dates with her kid or acting like goofy high schoolers after we'd send her to bed, we were texting each other at work, tagging each other in funny memes on Facebook. You know, dorky, cheesy, lovey-dovey kid stuff that's embarrassing to admit to as an adult in his 30s. Now, we were in love, real love, something that, to that point, I'd never known like that before. I'd been shot at and stabbed. Hell, my whole injury was due to getting my leg blasted with a 7.62, but none of that made me more nervous and scared than this new love I was feeling. I had it bad. However, there was a complication in the form of her brother, some lanky, inbred, wannabe gangster boy, whiter than driven snow, who came in and started crashing on her futon a month and a half into our relationship. This guy had the highly unfortunate blessing of also being the kiddo's godfather, uncle. He had no blood relation to my girlfriend or the child. He was just some former tweaker who worked at the Target they both worked at who started crashing from low blood sugar. He was coming down from whatever he was high on. So she got him a cheeseburger and soda, which, in the tweaker culture, is like being given a handful of gold. He was forever in her debt and became her right-hand man, never wanting her romantically as he preferred trash similar to his own kind, thank you God. She referred to him as brother, and he of her as sister, so naturally he was uncle to the little one. Which meant when he showed up in the middle of the night, midway through our relationship, it was a very bad sign for me, because that homeless, now jobless, feckless idiot was moving in. Our friendship started out on a very suddenly bad note, because he was met by me and a 45 in his face, wondering why a grown man was in my girlfriend's apartment while we were in bed. And I heard something going bump. Side note for any concerned citizens, the kid was sleeping between us, and they didn't have any pets, so I knew whatever was making noise out there wasn't anyone in the room, and nobody else should have been there. Pair that with recent break-ins in her complex, and you can see why I was justifiably armed. Now, I did not live there. I had my own studio near the base. I just stayed the night often because it was convenient and fun. And with the recent break-ins, they also felt safer with me there, so win-win-win. So naturally, I didn't have any say in anything regarding him living there. In an effort to placate the young whippersnapper after holding a gun to his nose, I let him borrow my PS3 and a spare TV I had so he had something to do, because forget him if he was going to actually go out and find a job. Instead, he smoked weed out on the balcony all day and played Need for Speed and COD on my PlayStation. This guy acted like my girlfriend was his mom, expected her to cook him food when she got home from work, expected her to take his laundry out and fold it for him. God, he once asked her if she could relace his shoelaces onto his sneakers because she does it better. The kid, he was 23, was a total loser, and beyond just being a live-in babysitter for the actual child when Mom and I were at work, because my med leave ended eventually, served absolutely no value. We'd come home to a messy kitchen and stuff all over the apartment. Numerous times he'd leave a growler in the toilet and neglect to flush. And shame on him for asking my girlfriend to do his laundry because I didn't always see TP in the water when I was the one to flush it. That man had an itchy backside all the time, I guarantee it. He was good with the kid, though. I will give him that. She never had a dirty diaper before she transitioned to the potty. So good on him for actually being a little useful. And it was like this for 4 more months. Eventually, I was spending so much time over there that she and I were talking about getting an apartment together, so we're not paying 2 leases. And of course, dude guy was hitting us up for a spare room, which we fought and argued about because 4 months after moving in, guy still had no job. The guy who talked so much game about being a successful drug dealer in his late teens, lol, couldn't move legal weed. He claimed to be a professional drift car driver, but he nearly backed my car into a light pole 4 times the handful of times I trusted him enough to park it for me. And every single time we argued or had a little spat, his choice of words were, "I'm going to kick your butt. If I can't kick your butt myself, I have a whole bunch of friends who can and will." Now I want to reiterate, I was not a SEAL. I did not go through the rigorous combat training the Navy teaches special warfare operators and team guys. I learned some enough to qualify you for special warfare. But what SEALs go through in Bud S and their supplemental training schools, their individual specialty schools, and whatever clandestine stuff the agencies and JSC have them doing nowadays was completely missed on my career track. We drive boats, we fly in choppers, we jump out of planes. Sometimes we do a mission with a SEAL team, but most of the time it's a partner force op or some kind of escort op in some territorial waterway we're not supposed to be in. Maybe we're pulling a few divers out of the murk and not talking about it the rest of the way to extract, because it's one of those missions. There's a reason SEALs are also called frogmen. I was also injured. I could walk on both legs by this point, but if my painters weren't working well enough or if the weather was bad, there were days I couldn't stand up straight without leaning on something. But the rest of my body was still in decent shape. I'd trained Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the fleet. I practiced Kali and Silat with some Filipino guys I'd met on base. They are why I love Lumpia so much. I picked up different shooting stances like center axis relock. I went to CQB shooting courses thanks to my Navy career. I wasn't Rambo, but I wasn't a slouch either. And I could kill this guy with my bare hands, no 1911 necessary. But I loved his sister, and I wanted to marry her and adopt her child. so I bit my tongue whenever he flashed on me. Weeks went by. Every now and then he'd snap at me for some stuff. I decided I'd had enough, and one night when I was leaving to head home, I took my PS3 and TV with me. He loved that. He declared that I was banned from the apartment, to which my girlfriend reminded him that it's her apartment and her rules, and that he needed to be respectful. Then one fateful morning, maybe a week after that, I had spent the night and we were getting up early because I needed to be on base and she had to go to work. So we got out the door with the kiddo, and just as we were buckling her into her car seat, I realized I had left my wallet inside. So I went back to the apartment and retrieved it, and as I was walking towards the front door, Genius pipes up with, "You're cleaning those dishes when you get back." Dear audience, those dishes were dishes he had dirtied the previous night when he made late-night stoner mac and cheese and somehow needed a mixing bowl and 4 different wooden spoons to make it. I looked at them, looked at him, looked back at them, then back at him, and said, "You're high, clean them yourself, jerk, and don't ever tell me what to do again," before doing the damned best about face a man can do when low on painkillers and high on pain and salt and walking out the door. I was maybe 6 or 7 steps down their stairwell when I heard the door fly open behind me. I turned to see him coming at me with both hands, and he threw me the rest of the way down the stairs. I landed hard on my back, knocking the wind out of my body and hitting the back of my head hard on the concrete deck. My leg caught fire with fresh pain. Then he jumped on top of me, snapping me out of my daze, and I went to work on him. I grit through the pain and started working to get on top of him, where I proceeded to rain hell on his face with my fists. I split his lips, I popped him in the eyes and the temple, I even gave his Adam's apple a nice little tap. I was furious, and I honestly didn't care if I killed him in that moment. Someone had to die, and it was definitely not going to be me. But she saved his life a second time. She was wondering why it was taking so long. And when she heard the yelling, she came running and found me on top and beating the gravy out of him. She screamed for me to get off, and I did. As soon as I did, his mouth started running. Sister, he threatened to kill me, and he attacked me and threw me down the stairs because I asked him to bring back the PS3, which she knew was nonsense, and the neighbor's security camera outside backed that up. But in that moment, she was livid, and rightfully so. I took her to work. I took the kid to daycare. I went to base. I had to explain to my CO why I had bloody knuckles and why I was holding a cold pack to the back of my head. They offered to call the police so I could press charges. I told them no. My CO almost ordered me to call the police or he'd put me back on med leave, which he couldn't really do. But I told him I'd rather be on med leave than lose my girlfriend for calling the cops on her brother. It was made clear to me, under no uncertain terms, that I am a particularly stubborn kind of fool, and that it would come back to bite me in my rear someday. Well, he was right. Basically, brother gave an ultimatum. Either I leave, and she dumps me, or he leaves and walks out of her and her daughter's life. And to be fair to my ex, that guy had been the only constant male figure in her kid's life since she was born, so losing him would have been devastating for the little one, and she wanted to spare her that pain. Which meant I got the axe. Honestly, I'd have rather taken an actual axe to the heart, because what I actually felt was way worse. It's one thing when you're saying goodbye to the woman you love, but to also say goodbye to a sobbing little kid you wanted so much to adopt and make your own? I don't want to meet the man who can hold back the tears from that. I went back to my apartment, put together a little box with toys and keepsakes they'd left behind, and waited for the right time to bring it by her work. I was a broken man. But that guy, he wanted to kick me while I was down. Remember those friends he mentioned? Well, he wasn't lying. He did have some friends with rap sheets and bad intentions, and in the months that followed her and I breaking up, he put them to work. I woke up one morning to discover my car had been blocked up, the wheels taken off, my catalytic converter cut out, and they had spray-painted slurs and swastikas on my car after busting out my windows. I wasn't Jewish, and I had been dating his sister for the last 6 months, but somehow I was both a slur and another slur. What my insurance didn't cover cost me $2,500 in repairs. Police were called, a report was made, surveillance footage was useless though. Faces covered, they wore gloves so no prints, and it's not like they're rolling out CSI for auto vandalism. 2 weeks later, an attempted arson attack on my front door. Someone wearing a mask and a hoodie lit a Molotov cocktail and threw it at my doormat, and if it weren't for the apartment's fire sprinklers actually working, my apartment would have burnt down with me in it because I wasn't jumping from the third-floor balcony. That was a more serious crime. Cops were very interested, but again, no usable prints, face covered for the camera, etc. Then it was quiet for a month. My ex reached out when she heard about the fire, and I told her I knew it was her brother, but I didn't have proof. She said she'd say something to him, and coincidentally, nothing happened again for a while. Until, I guess, cops came around asking to talk to him because obviously I gave them his name. In the month and some change since our spat, she had basically forced him to find some kind of work, or she was going to kick him out. So he got a part-time gig at an auto shop in town that had a bad rep. They cut corners everywhere they could, so it was a perfect job for him. At least until the cops came looking for him one day, asking about that fire. The owners didn't like having cops sniffing around, so since he'd only been there a week or two, he got the boot. He deeply appreciated that. So one night, I'm getting home from work. I'd stopped at the gym on the way, worked up a good sweat, and got a bite to eat from the grocery store. I pulled into my spot in my Enterprise rental. My car was still in the shop, and walked into my apartment. Real quick, while I was over 21 and legally owned guns and had a concealed carry permit, on days where I was on base, I did not carry. It's incredibly rare for anyone whose explicit job description doesn't include carries a pistol at all times to be allowed to carry a weapon on base. Since I wasn't leaving a pistol in my car and there weren't any places to securely store a weapon while I was working, I just opted not to take my gun with me. It's also why I did not have a pistol on me the morning he jumped me. I was unarmed. I lived on the 3rd floor. There was a 4th floor above me and stairs leading to it. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs fast, and I turned to see 4 guys in hoods, masks, and wearing gloves coming towards me. My door was open, so I dropped my groceries and tried to slam the door. They got a foot in and managed to wedge through into my apartment. What followed took place during a period of about 14 seconds. The neighbor across the way, after the fire, got a security cam installed outside their door as well, so we know the actual timestamps. I kept a loaded pistol tucked in a closet near my front door. Irresponsible, I know, but I was younger and more naive. In the scuffle with the first guy who came through the door, I managed to reach into the closet, find the gun, and push myself back to give us several feet of space. I remember vividly seeing all 4 men in my doorway and hallway. The first guy I had just pushed, having been body blocked from falling backward, and was coming at me again. I raised my pistol, this one a SIG P226, chambered in .40 Smith & Wesson, and just as I heard one of them shout, "Gun!" I started lining up shots and pulling the trigger. There were no limb shots, no shooting to scare them. I didn't try to wing them. Body, head. As I had trained, as I had been taught. The first guy went down. The second guy caught 2 of the through-and-throughs from the first guy before I hit him in the forehead. The third guy stopped dead in his tracks before catching 4 center of mass, and the fourth guy was halfway out the door before I emptied the rest of my magazine into him through friend number 3 and whatever I could see. You might be thinking, oops, that 4th guy was running away. That's murder. Well, the cops didn't see it that way, and the investigators didn't charge it that way, because he lived. Now, the first 3 didn't. The first guy's brains were all over the second guy. The second guy's brains were all over my wall. The third guy's heart and both lungs were demolished. He was pronounced dead on the scene. The 4th guy was my ex's brother. Of the 3 bullets that hit him, 1 grazed his rear, the other lodged itself in his right hip, and the third one hit him square in the spinal cord, right around the kidney area. Shattered his spine and completely destroyed his future. He was paralyzed from the navel down. Had to have a permanent catheter and diapers. He'd never walk again. He'd never sleep with anyone again. And when he was healthy enough to be discharged from the hospital, he was locked up in prison, given 3 manslaughter charges since he caught the rap for his 3 buddies getting killed. He was also charged with conspiracy to commit murder, assault, battery, and reckless endangerment for me discharging in an apartment complex. He was never going to breathe free air again. I'd like to say this ended happily ever after, that she took me back, that we got married, and I adopted her little one, and we had kids of our own. But she didn't. Within 24 hours, she declared she was scared of me, that she did not want me anywhere near her or her child, that she'd call the police if she ever saw me near her home or workplace. She called me a murderer. She accused me of provoking things just so I could shoot him. She ignored the arson, the vandalism, the threats. I never saw her again. She blocked me on everything. Her family blocked me. She changed her number, transferred to a different target, and after a couple months, she moved to a different apartment. It's been 8 years since, and I still haven't heard from her. I know she's alive. Friends of friends told me she got married in 2020, had another kid, and is happy. More power to her. I never got my happy ending. My white picket fence. Believe it or not, killing 3 guys, even for someone trained for war and conditioned for that possibility, messes with your head, especially when it happens in your home and not Baghdad or Abbottabad. There's a huge mental difference between killing for work and killing because your life is in danger. I had PTSD, couldn't touch my guns for a year without panic attacks. The Navy was great about it, helped with the investigation. Even that CO who once called me the apex dummy gave a statement. I was offered the chance to live on base with protective detail until things cooled down. I declined. 8 years later, I'm retired. I work in the private sector. I have my own LLC doing cybersecurity and consulting. Occasionally I go boating. My partner of 3 years is the most loving, supportive person I've ever been with. We're talking about kids. Life's good. But you know what really warmed my heart? Just the other day, a Google alert I set up 8 years ago triggered. It was his name, followed by the word obituary. Turns out someone in prison got sick and tired of the annoying white boy in a wheelchair talking too much and flexing on people, believing nobody would hit someone in a wheelchair. They used the wheelchair to cave his skull in and used their shoes to finish him off. Of course, the obituary said he was a bright and lovable lad who fell on hard times. The real surprise was apparently he was survived by a daughter none of us knew he had back then. So, sad for her, but maybe for the best. So yeah, sorry for the novel, but I just didn't feel like leaving out the details that mattered. Hell hath no fury, like 2 women scorned. Say goodbye to all your stuff. 15 years ago, I had a boyfriend that I'd been with for 6 years. He moved to another city for work while I finished my studies, and then I would move there too. He was apartment hunting, subleasing in the meantime. He came home almost every weekend and during Christmas and New Year's. He found an apartment in January and invited me up to show it, and I prepared to move up. Looking for a job, looking for new furniture, etc. Late February, I told him it's time to terminate the lease on the apartment in our hometown when he suddenly broke up with me. I was shocked and very sad. He collected some clothes and his very expensive PC, which he'd built from scratch. It was his baby. 2 weeks later, he updated his profile pic on FB to him and another woman kissing. Obviously, they hadn't been dating 2 weeks. I called him and called him out on it, and he admitted to having met her 2 months ago. He was at the airport to travel abroad with his buddy for the weekend, so we didn't talk long. That same evening, I decided to tell the new GF. I managed to find her on FB and wrote her. She didn't believe me at first, of course. But I sent her texts, pics. I described their apartment in detail. Well, her apartment, as it turned out. When I sent her a dick pic he'd sent me with their bedroom clearly in the background, she said, "Okay, enough. I believe you." She told me they'd been dating for 8 months, not 2. She'd been in Africa for 2 months, in December and January, which would explain why he was able to be with me for 2 weeks over the holidays and why he could invite me to see the apartment. We wrote a lot. He'd sent us the exact same Valentine's Day text. He'd bought us the exact same Christmas present, etc. You get the picture. After comparing notes, it was time for revenge. She cut up all of his clothes and left them in a pile on the floor. I told her about the PC and advised her to tear that fucker to pieces. She hacked it with screwdrivers and hammers, and every piece was beyond saving. When he came home on Sunday, she tossed him out with nowhere to go, but not before showing him all of his possessions obliterated. Eat it. I need to clarify that legally, it was my PC. I'd won money on one of those scratch lottery tickets, but since we were living together, I kind of thought of it as ours. Huge mistake. Threaten my friend with revenge corn? I'll ruin your whole damn life. My very good friend made some slightly dumb mistakes and sent some pictures to someone that she reasonably thought she could trust, but not knowing much more than his first name, his screen name, and roughly where he lived and the type of work he did. He is not in our country, but had indicated that he would be traveling for work to near us shortly, and they had made some plans to meet. And when she got some red flags and backed out, the dude threatened to publish these pictures online. I am, incidentally, an attorney. So some searching later and gathering up any pictures he sent her of him that could possibly identify him, his online handle led me to a TikTok page, which led me to an Instagram page with his name on it. That led to a LinkedIn page with his place of work that matched a picture he sent with a branded polo he was wearing. Some more searches got me the email of the CEO, VP of HR, Operations Manager, and Public Relations Manager. I just fired off an email on behalf of my client of the screenshots of him threatening revenge corn. Snippets of the conversation showing that username while he sent that exact picture of him wearing his company's branded apparel, links to how I know it's him, along with pictures he sent her of his motorcycle with the license plate showing, as further proof it is him. I also included screenshots of him discussing a workplace incident that were time-stamped, along with pieces of dialogue discussing how he made love with an ex at his place of work, and discussing plans to make love with her in his office as well. I also included a picture he sent her showing his work laptop with his entire Outlook calendar, along with proprietary information, which he sent to prove he was busy, along with other pictures he took of his workplace with non-consenting employees. I further informed his employer that I will be forwarding all this information to them, law enforcement, and since he had indicated that he would be traveling to the United States soon, will also forward this to the local office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as since my client is a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil, these threats constituted a federal crime. So that should they continue with his employment and continue with their plans to send him to the United States for work, I will ensure, on behalf of my client, that federal law enforcement is waiting for him on arrival, which I will do, as one of the assistant U.S. attorneys for this region is a law school buddy of mine. Since I have his license plate Hummer, I know where he lives and will be contacting his local authorities tomorrow. You dumb mother flipper, thinking you were hiding around anonymity, thinking you could threaten my friend? It took me 45 minutes to destroy your life. So I have an update to this, barely 12 hours later. Before I get into the update, though, I want to clarify a few things from my original post, primarily about the contact to the employer and why. Some questioned its truthfulness. While the entire story is true, some details were omitted for various reasons. There was more I had in our possession that did positively identify this individual. So, would a lawyer contact his employer, like some stated would not be done? Depends. I did not do what I did on behalf of a client who retained me. I did it as a friend to help a friend, and as her friend who is also a labor and employment law attorney, I knew exactly how to squeeze this. And here's the thing. I was absolutely aware, from the onset, that the revenge corn threat would go nowhere with his employer. Even if I could clearly lay out how the person with this screen name was in fact this person who works at this company, all we had are screenshots. If it was just the revenge corn threat, any employer would go, well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. But even if we accept our employee uses this screen name, and we neither confirm nor deny anyone of that name works here, we have no provenance on this. This is just an alleged screenshot of an alleged conversation that could be easily edited and manipulated. Please feel free to pursue this with local authorities, and rest assured, should we be asked to, we will cooperate fully with any law enforcement inquiry, but we have no further comment at this time. And I know that's what they would say, because that's exactly what I would say. An alleged screenshot of an alleged conversation that was allegedly sent under an alleged username that is allegedly one of our employees. Whatever, dude, call the cops if you're worried about it. We'll answer them honestly if they come to us. The issue wasn't the revenge porn threat. It was the picture of the contents of the work laptop. Because that can't be faked. There's no way for her or me to create a false image of the actual proprietary information on his work computer unless he sent it. There's no way for me or her to have possession of images taken of his coworkers without their consent unless he sent them. The proof here wasn't that this person broke the law. It's that he sent pictures of company employees and property, which would absolutely be verifiable by their IT department, that yes, this is absolutely his laptop. That's what would get him fired. So I advised my friend not to block him, to sit back and wait and not respond to anything, but let him dig himself in deeper, and respond he did. Update: he's been fired. So with now definitive proof that the individual in the online conversation is in fact this person, we'll forward it all to the local authorities in his country, along with his license plate number. They're more than capable of getting his home address. Can't keep it in your pants? Have fun trying to live a normal life. A friend of mine told me my story belonged there, so here we go. Trigger warning. In my country, high school starts at the age of 15 and lasts 3 years. I was a year early, so I was 14. During the first weeks of school, a guy in my class, for the sake of this story I'll call him Connor, approached me, and we started getting along to the point we quickly started dating. Little did I know Connor would become my worst nightmare for the next 3 years. He was 17 when we met, and just like a lot of guys this age, he was obsessed with doing it. He pressured me into having my first time with him, and he broke up with me right after I eventually gave in. After that, none of our next intercourses were consented. He was very manipulative and gaslit me into believing I wanted everything that was happening to me. It took me a while to understand what he was actually doing. In fact, I only got it after hooking up with another person at the age of 17. Before it finally hit me, he had his way with me more than 50 times. During our second year of high school, he made the mistake of forcing himself violently on my best friend. She ended up getting in pregnancy termination because of him, and I started plotting my revenge. Originally, it was supposed to avenge her, but it ended up working for me as well. I noticed that not only he would only approach the first years, even if he was 20 when I graduated, but he would also target the youngest girls among them too. He was repeating me how much more attractive I was at 14 than 17. So, knowing that it was pointless to tell the police because in my country, only 0.4% of all complaints of rape where victims are less than 15 end up in a sentence, I ruined his reputation. I told every single one of his acquaintances that he was a rapist, and to protect my best friend, I told everyone I was the one he had violated, which wasn't really a lie. The rumor spread like wildfire, and after a few days, even the teachers were looking at him with disgust. He was isolated, and the only reason why he wasn't bullied was because he is 6'3", 90 centimeters tall. I could have stopped there, but I didn't. When we were third years, I knew exactly which universities he applied for. By snooping in Connor's bag, I found his application numbers, so using those, I contacted every single university he applied for and explained the situation, providing screenshots of his conversation with my best friend, where he was threatening her with a defamation case if she attempted to press charges against him. She had sent them to me to rant about him, and I had kept them all this time. All of them thanked me, and he ended up not being able to get in any university. He had to repeat his third year because of that, in an establishment where everyone knew what he had done, and all the first years would know that they had to avoid him at all costs. The next year, since I wasn't there to foil his applications, Connor was accepted in a university that I hadn't contacted the previous year. Unfortunately for him, I ended up learning which university he was going in and repeated the same process. There were former students of our high school in the university he was going to who spoke up to the uni's mental health center about the inappropriate behavior he had with them and told them what kind of rumors there were against him. Since I had provided proof that the rumors were true, Connor was permanently expelled for the safety of the female students attending the university. So now he doesn't have a degree and nowhere else to go study, with no social life. His situation couldn't get worse, could it? Well, yes, I made it worse. Connor tried to move to another region where no one would know him and pass a diploma to work with kids. However, Connor is a phone addict and couldn't help but share on his social medias that he had passed his diploma and started working as an educator for troubled kids and preteens. Little did he know, I had created an account pretending to be one of his only remaining high school acquaintances who I knew was chronically offline. With a bit of searching, I ended up finding his workplace and started the same process all over again. I also added a message he had left on my voicemail where he was panting while telling me how hot I was at the age of 14 and how he would have loved to go back in time just to do me again. Needless to say, they got rid of him really quick, fearing for the safety of the kids. I was planning on keeping reporting him to all the places he was planning to work to, but his previous workplace took care of that for me. I don't know how, but according to Connor's social media, they managed to get him blacklisted on a national level, technically invalidating his diploma. Due to this, he couldn't pay his rent anymore and ended up being homeless for a while before his mother accepted to take him back in. I'm friends with his older sister who knows everything about it and told the rest of the family what happened. From what she's told me, everyone cut off ties with both Connor and his mother, including her. I'm still occasionally stalking his social media to see if he's trying to get back on his feet. The last time I checked was today, right before writing all of this. So graping two people ended up isolating him both socially and from his family. As long as I'm alive, he has no chance of ever getting a girlfriend. He lives in the region where he spent his high school years, so no one would hire him even as a cleaner, and he even spent some nights in the street. Honestly, at this point, it's impressive that no one tried to harm him physically, make him go through what he made me and my best friend go through, or even end his life. Go to hell, Connor. And trust me when I tell you that you'll have to wait for me to die before even thinking about starting to have a normal life. Update. So something happened in the past weeks. Just before the Christmas holidays, actually. In the last paragraphs of my story, I stated that I'm still occasionally stalking Connor's social media to see if he was trying to get back on his feet. Well, he did. He tried to get back on his feet. As I was scrolling, I saw he said he is a shareholder of a brand new fitness brand he works for. I found this odd, since I know he can't afford to move from his mother's house, and he failed his driver's license and can't afford to try again, so he can't drive. In other words, he's stuck in the small city where our high school is, with thousands of people who know his name and face and are aware of what he has done. It's near impossible to find a job in these conditions, and I don't see what skills or qualifications he could use to get an online job. By doing some digging, I found the infamous fitness brand and did a bit of searching on their website. I found out that not only he is not on the list of their shareholders, but what he actually got in is a pyramid scheme. I pushed him in a corner so much that I made him join a pyramid scheme in a desperate attempt to get out of the situation I put him in. He created a second social media account to sell their stuff and never got more than 5 likes on a post. At first, before realizing that this was a pyramid scheme, I was like, all right, you know the drill at this point, and I was preparing myself to get him fired just like I did before. But now that I know what kind of business this is, I'll just leave him in his own mess. Not only I would be doing him a favor by pulling him out of there, but I don't even know if I could if I really wanted to. They seem shady enough to not care about having felons in their team. Here, only 3 types of crimes are considered felonies: Taking someone's life, whether it's murder, terrorism, manslaughter, etc., rape, and printing fake money. Of course, aggravating circumstances apply. All other charges are considered at most misdemeanors, which doesn't mean they can't get you locked up for a few years. This might be the one and only time I'll ever be thankful for the existence of pyramid schemes. I don't even know what kind of damage they can potentially do to him. And for now, I don't see how he could be a threat to anyone. From what I gathered on his social media accounts, it doesn't look like he's in contact with people at the same level as him. If that has to change, I'll warn them individually. But for now, I finally don't have to worry about this problem for a while. That is, until he inevitably gets out of there. Finding this out truly lifted a weight off my shoulders, to the point that I had almost forgotten I had this information. It's liberating, I would say, to finally be at peace. It had not happened in a few years. One thing doesn't change, though. Go to hell, Connor. And trust me when I tell you that you'll have to wait for me to die before even thinking about starting to have a normal life.